Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Netalina Nasruddin. I am super excited because we have yet again another amazing guest today, Dr. Darnyelle. We got Darnyelle. Move to Millions. And I'm really excited about our conversation today. This is one that you don't want to miss. I've done a little bit of research, of course, on our guest today, and I'm excited to jump in. So thank you for joining us. And Dr. Darnyelle, thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that I always ask in the beginning of the podcast is really just to brag a little bit. We want our guests to get to know you, but I think it's good for them to hear it in your own words.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, brag. I always say brag.
Yeah, so I love that. I am the best thing since pockets. Think about it. If you didn't have access to pockets, how would your life be? So I am the best thing since pockets. I am the CEO of a company called Incredible One Enterprises. We work with entrepreneurs and small business owners that are generating six figures a year, but they know that they were born to lead companies that make millions. And so we help them make, move, and ultimately lead millions by teaching them business acumen and financial literacy that will truly help them shift the trajectory of their life and to be able to create a financial legacy for their loved ones and generations to come.
Fantastic. And that's, I think, pretty much what everybody wants. So I would love to hear, a little bit about your story to start. Why this? How did you get here? What was your path?
Yeah. So, I was born to drug addicted turned crack addicted parents back in 1975. Crack didn't come into the United States until 1989, but my parents were partakers. And of course, as you might imagine, that made my childhood very chaotic, right? I think my parents did the best that they could with what they had. I imagine I've never been addicted to a substance. So I imagine that when you suffer from an addiction, it can be hard to navigate, right? And so I believe that they did the best that they could. I made a decision very early on that despite where I came from, that wasn't going to be my life, that I wasn't going to be another Black girl in the ghetto statistic. And so I studied. I got a good education. In high school, I was accepted into several colleges and was able to go to college on a full scholarship. So it didn't cost me anything to attend, which was pretty awesome. My parents, in doing the best that they could with what they had, did not teach me financial literacy. So I was extremely illiterate financially, and it caused problems as I became an adult. Lots of credit card debt that turned into $250,000 in credit card debt, which turned into bankruptcy and almost living in my car before I was put in a position where, as a result of my bankruptcy, I had to attend a financial literacy course. And I really got to learn not just the practicality of money, but also the spirituality of money. And that really changed my life. And so learning about the energetics and neuroscience around money, as well as the tactical, how to create a budget and how to balance a checkbook, it shifted everything. Within 3 years, I became a millionaire. And then I became a $1 million CEO. And once I did it, because I don't believe in theory, I wanted to create an environment where I could help other people who look just like me, Black women. We are the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs in the United States. And we're also the brokest segment. We have the most degrees, but we are not making great money. That's a problem. That's a disparity that I could do something about. So approximately 4 years ago, we started Move to Millions, literally creating program and business education to help these business owners get to the $1 million mark in a way that they could sustain over time. And so we've worked with hundreds of clients that have grown their businesses between 50 and 200% on average. And we've helped 45 cross the $1 million mark and sustain $1 million companies. And so I'm really, really proud of that, the work that we're doing and how we're creating a new identity in entrepreneurship. Like, I think about that American Express small business report that said that the average Black woman-owned business makes $24,000 a year. Well, I have clients who make $24,000 in an hour. And so being able to create this kind of environment has been so life-changing for me, as well as helping our clients really shift for themselves and for future generations in their family.
Okay, there you said a lot there, which I love. So we're gonna dive into all of it. First, I want to honor your resilience to not only get up from the challenges that you've gone through, but also move forward. Because I always say that there's multiple ways to be resilient. Some people are resilient in that they survived. They got up. They're resilient. They're strong. They survived, but then they use their pain to hold them back. Yeah. It's always like, well, I went through this and therefore I cannot, or, you don't know where I come from. And so this is why I haven't. And then there's people like yourself that say, oh, no, I'm going to use that pain to actually drive me forward,
absolutely,
right? Push me out of a circumstance and level up to the next phase in my life. And you have done that. So before we jump into, what you're doing right now, I would just love to ask, how do you think you did that? Like, why didn't you become the other person that was like, well, I'm going to kind of use this to sit in and for the rest of my life be stuck in it, versus, nah, we're going to move forward and do something.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you use the word resilient, because that's what my therapists always used to say, right? My mom has 7 children. I'm number 3. My dad had 4 children. They shared 3 children. I'm number 2 of my father's children. And my therapist said, there's always one resilient child. I guess I'm her, right? And so I believe, honestly, that it was innate. Like, I remember distinctly looking left and looking right, seeing what my options were, and deciding instead I was just going to go straight, right? I was going to stay on the straight and narrow path. I was going to get an education. I wasn't going to get pregnant and end up on welfare like many of my friends did at that particular point in time in my life. And it made all the difference. But I also had great teachers and guidance counselors that made a difference. But it was just that personal determination to want something other than where I came from. I remember being very young and saying, I'm going to be rich one day. Like, I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew that I was going to reach a day where money wouldn't be my problem. Mm-hmm. And I was willing to show up fully for myself at every turn to get to that reality. And it's just, I don't think money is everything, but I think money gives us choices, right? It's a tool. It's an energy that's always available to us. And when we understand the mechanics and the neuroscience associated with money, then we can make it do whatever we want it to do whenever we want it to do it, right? But that's not where I was raised. That's not what I was taught as a child, right? I was taught that you had to work hard for money. I was taught that money doesn't exist on a tree out back. I was taught that I had to work twice as hard for half as much, and I should be grateful that I got anything at all. And so those were the micro lessons that were ruminating in my psychology as I was becoming an adult, and it would have remained my life had it not been for that bankruptcy trustee who made me go through a financial literacy course. Like, that literally shifted the trajectory. I imagine that if that didn't happen, I would still be replicating the cycles. I would still I would have filed bankruptcy and ran it all up again, filed bankruptcy again, and maybe ran it up one more time after that. Like, I don't know how often you can file bankruptcy, because I vowed it would never happen in my life again. But I think that, when you are not taught to break the cycle, you keep regurgitating the cycle.
For sure.
And so I'm just grateful for the early mentors and the early people who when they looked at me, they didn't see, angry Black girl or poor ghetto girl. Like, what they saw was promise and potential, and they honed in on that promise to give me a leg up, to give me a different environment to exist in, so that I really could get to be the person that I am today.
Yeah. And I love that. And so I want to touch upon, the money aspect that you're talking about, which is what I love that you're saying right now, which many people don't think about, is yes, there's the tangibility behind money, bringing in money, making money, but there's also the mindset around it. You can see my little puppy in the back. He wants to hear this conversation. There's also the mindset around it where, a scarcity versus abundance mindset, understanding that it's a tool and not being afraid of it. And we work with a lot of professionals as well, not specifically with money, but the amount of times that we hear, I don't have the money, or I can't make that kind of money, and you hear it over and over and over again, and you can tell that the relationship is not healthy. And so it keeps them stuck. And I remember when I first started my business, I had $100 and I had a little bit of that scarcity mindset with money. Like, how am I going to do this? And I read a book that said it takes just as much energy to play small and stress as it does to play large and take action. And boom, instantly I'm like, all right, we can't be stressing about money. We got to move forward, take action, use it as a tool, so on and so forth. So for you, what you're talking about is so important, not only on an adult level for professionals to level up, but also for kids, right? Young adults figuring out these life skills before they end up in a position where they don't know what to do with their money and they lose it all. So what are some tangible things that you would say, all right, listen up, here's what we need to start doing?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I want everyone to recognize that we're all in a relationship with money. Most of us have a relationship with money that we inherited based on what we were taught and what we caught from whomever raised us. And so we're meandering through life looking at money contrary to how we should, right? Think about any other relationship that you're in. If you are in a relationship with a human and you didn't ever check on that person, do you think that you would stay in that relationship? Right? So not looking at your money every single day could cause a problem for you, right? Money likes attention. I believe that money flows away from those who feel that there's a shortage of it. So saying things like, I can't afford that, that's out of my budget, that's too much. You're telling money that you don't want money around because you don't believe in its power to be available whenever you desire it. And so it leaves you, right? So first, just recognize the things that you're saying. That's number one. Number two, I want you to become conscious of your money. So start paying attention to it. I've heard financial planners and people who help people with budgets say, write down every money, every dime you spend, write it down. The exercise of doing that is not to make you feel bad or to make you feel like you're frivolous and you're just wasting money. The exercise is to make you conscious of it. Yes. Because once you become conscious of it, you can shift how you respond and relate to it. So being cognizant of how much money is filtering in and filtering out of your life experience on a daily basis is going to do one of two things. Number one, it's either going to scare you and it's going to keep you stuck in a scarcity mindset, or it's going to liberate you because you're going to realize how much money you actually have in your power. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't all make a money decision, right? Like if we decide to get up on any given day, and I hope we all do, and we decide to turn on the shower and take one, I hope we all decide to do that. There's a money decision because we're going to have to pay the water bill. Right? So when you what's the word I want to use? When you dismantle the meaning that money has been by normalizing it, it tends to have less of an impact on you in your life experience. And then you ultimately can get to the point where you can detach from any arbitrary relationship with it so that more of it begins to show up. So just become conscious of how much it is. And then the last thing I'll say is give purpose and intention to your money, because money needs purpose and intention to flow in. One of my favorite games to play with clients when we're doing money work is to have them spend the money in advance. So you come into $1 million, right? You wake up one morning and you check your bank account and there's literally $1 million in your bank account. And after you rub your eyes and realize that the money is really there, what are you doing with it? Give it purpose. Because when you give it purpose, it gives you an opportunity to become grateful. And that which you are grateful for, you invite God to bring you more of. And so being conscious and intentional, giving it purpose and paying attention to it is the fastest way to get it to change. Now, I can hear somebody saying, well, yeah, I pay attention to my money and it just keeps reminding me that I don't have a lot of it. So then I want you to think about what you're saying to yourself about money. Yeah. Because if you can choose to be grateful or you can choose to be grumpy. Grumpy is, I can't believe this cup of coffee costs $5. Grateful is, I'm so grateful I have $5 to buy my favorite coffee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so you can decide grumpy or grateful. When you're grateful, you're basically telling the universe that you like opportunities to do these things for yourself, so they will bring you more of those opportunities. So you get to decide, but it all starts with being conscious about the way you look at money, the way you look at yourself, and the way you relate to it.
Absolutely. And I love all that. And I want to ask you something while you were talking that kind of popped up for me. You know, we live in this world where there's this narrative that in order for you to be a millionaire or to make a ton of money, you have to go out there and you have to build your own business. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's made for that. And I think you can probably resonate with that as well. There's some people that, you know, building a business from scratch, maintaining it, being able to scale it, like that's not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
So for those that are listening to this podcast, because we have a lot of corporate professionals that are listening and executives where maybe they're in a job that they love, but they're not going to scale to $1 million in their company. Yeah. What is your advice or your thoughts on creating multiple streams that don't necessarily have to do with building a business from the bottom?
Absolutely. Well, first, let's just define millionaire for everyone. A millionaire is a person who has $1 million in assets. So if you have a home that's worth $750,000 and you have a stock portfolio or 401k that's valued at $250,000, you're a millionaire. Just so we're clear, right? There are multiple ways to make millions of dollars. And so if you have a job that you love, first of all, don't keep it, because everyone's not built for the risk that is associated with entrepreneurship. Yeah. But look at ways to really diversify your wealth. So let's say you get a bonus, right? So let's say you work a job and at your job, you make $80,000 a year. At the end of the year, you get a bonus. That bonus is $25,000. And by the time your taxes and everything is taken out, you have $12,000 left over. You can take that $12,000 and you can do a multitude of things with it. Number one, you could put it in the stock market through working with your qualified financial management professional. They can help you to invest it that way. Number two, you could buy real estate. Number three, you can decide that you want to invest in someone else's business. There are multiple ways that you can use that money. I would encourage you to not just sit it in a bank account, right? And if you are going to sit it in a bank account, make sure it's at least a high yield savings account so that it's earning something for you. Because a high yield savings account will earn you 8 to 10%, or I'm sorry, will earn you about 5%.
Yeah.
So at minimum, do that, but get with a professional that can help you make that money multiply, because money was actually made to multiply. It's called currency for a reason. It's supposed to flow. It's always moving. It's supposed to move. And there are many things that we can do to make it move. If you happen to take out a whole life insurance policy, as an example, let's say you invest, I'm going to make some numbers up because I don't know how much a whole life insurance policy costs off the top of my head, but let's say you invest $18,000 a year in a whole life insurance policy. And let's say the policy is $1 million. It'll pay out $1 million at your death so that your family can, they can pay off your house or whatever the case might be. As soon as you take out that policy and have the plan in place of how you're going to make the premiums, you have $1 million. So we have to remember that wealth is not just liquid. Or money is not just liquid. It can be investments that can be used over time. If you work for someone, you have a 401k or a 403b, depending upon what kind of organization you work for. Take the maximum match the company will give you. It's free money, right? And make sure that whoever is advising you puts you in a portfolio that has some long-term gains and potentially some short-term gains, depending upon your own risk tolerances that are associated with it. Bottom line is there's more than one way to skin the millionaire cat, and there is no one right way for everybody. You've got to find the way that's right for you. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur yourself, but you want to invest in other businesses, that's another great way to be able to make millions of dollars.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because I do think that sometimes people that listen, to individuals that talk about being a millionaire, like, well, I don't have a business and I work for corporate. Again, it's that scarcity around, how to make the money. And so I love that you were able to put it in practical strategies for anyone that's listening, whether you run your own business or you don't. ways that you can get to that $1 million mark. This has been a great conversation, very tangible, very simple for our audience to understand. I would love to jump into the power section of the interview and ask just some rapid fire questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So first question is, if you were to, God forbid, leave this world tomorrow, we always ask, what's the golden nugget, that final message that you would leave? What would that be?
Always be willing to bet on you.
I love that. And we're very big on values here at Rise Up For You, and we have values that are non-negotiable. What's a value for you that's a non-negotiable that you won't bend on?
Yeah, my integrity.
Okay, and final question before I ask, tell us where we can get a hold of you. You know, what's your website? Are you on LinkedIn? Anything that you want to offer our audience? This is the great opportunity to share with them.
Yeah, so I'm available on all platforms at Darnyelle Jervey Harmon. You can also go to movetomillions.com. And if you go there, it's a digest page. So it'll send you to all the places where you can learn more about me and the work that we do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Final question. As you know, we are Rise Up For You. That's the company. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase, rise up for you?
Yeah, show up fully, advocate for yourself, and be unapologetic about what most matters to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for joining in and tuning into the Rise Up For You podcast today. Every single week, we are bringing you amazing experts, thought leaders, executives from around the world to help you level up and be your absolute best and also take your team to that next level. Thanks for joining us. And Dr. Darnyelle, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.